Alright, so today I'm going to showcase Conspiracy and Conspiracy Take the Crown. Um, for now, I'm going to show you some of the things that I pulled today out of the original Conspiracy set, showcasing the commons and uncommons that I never even knew existed. And actually, some of them are reprints into standard sets like Favorable Winds. But some of these cards are just outrageous. I fell in love with this set like overnight. It's crazy because I never knew some of these existed, and I'm sure some of you guys out there have seen this stuff, but I'd say majority of you who are newer to the game like I am, or even you've seen a lot but you haven't seen everything, and this is one of those sets that just kind of eluded me for a while. I didn't understand what was so good about it until I actually opened them up. So I'm going to showcase some of my favorites, and starting with the thing that Conspiracy is known for, and that is the will of the council mechanic. And that's basically when everybody takes a vote, starting with you. Players take votes, and I thought that's pretty cool for player interaction. And it's not too often you see that kind of thing happen in Magic, and I wish there was more of it. It really makes everybody involved on everybody's turn, and it just really makes sense to the game. So I'm going to showcase some of my favorites, not in any particular order. So we'll start with Custody Squire. That's a 3/3 flyer for 4 and a white. It's got flying. Will of the Council. So when Custody Squire enters the battlefield, starting with you, each player votes for an artifact, creature, or enchantment card in your graveyard. Return each card with the most votes or tied for the most votes to your hand. So basically, if you have creatures, artifacts, and enchantments, and you want to get them back, everybody votes. And if they vote, simultaneously and say, okay, well, I want you to have this or this or this, well, whatever the most votes you get to get those back. So I'd say at least make sure you have a couple of each in your graveyard before you play something like this. But I think it's pretty cool, mid-game, late game, just to get some of your stuff back to be able to play it later on. Maybe like an Omniscience or something that got wiped out earlier, but you could really use it right now. It's pretty good in my book, so I think I might use this in some of my decks. Speaking of voting, there's a few cards that I like, including that one, and this one here is called Split Decision. It's got Will of the Council, obviously. Choose target instant or sorcery spell, starting with you. Each player votes for denial or duplication. If denial gets more votes, counter the spell. If duplication gets more votes, or the vote is tied, copy the spell. You may choose new targets for the copy. I think that's pretty cool because it's either guaranteeing you either countering a spell or copying a spell, and that to me is pretty good for a 2-drop. Plus, I mean, it leaves it up to the voters. I mean, that's what I like about these cards. It's like, well, does everybody want this thing to be countered, or would they be okay with duplicating the spell? It's also cool to see player interaction with that. Bite of the Black Rose, Will of the Council. Starting with you, each player votes for sickness or psychosis. If sickness gets more votes, creatures your opponents control get -2/-2 until the end of turn. If psychosis gets more votes, or the vote is tied, each opponent discards 2 cards. So if they got a board full of tokens or 2/2s or whatever, they don't want to lose them. Well, they're going to have to take the discarding 2 cards. It guarantees either creature removal or discarding of cards. Obviously, if somebody's not playing creature heavy, they're going to choose to play, the -2/-2 creatures. But on those creature heavy decks, it's pretty good. And for 4 mana, I'd say that's not too bad. It's not like overpowered or anything. It's just a pretty cool card to have. And like I said, the voting aspect is what intrigues me. So we've got 3 of those. And these, like I said, I opened all of these earlier, so this may not even be, all of the cards in the set. This is just what I opened and what I've seen that you've either never seen before, or they're like cool reprints that I've seen in standard, or maybe some modern stuff. But like I said, I've never really opened any conspiracy stuff before. Grudge Keeper. This is one of those cards that's not really worth putting in a deck, but I just wanted to showcase the will of the council aspect of the game. Whenever players finish voting, each opponent who voted for a choice you didn't vote for loses 2 life. So, like with Bite of the Black Rose, if I choose Psychosis and other players choose Sickness, each one who chooses Sickness, they lose 2 life. So then you've also got Brago's Representative. While voting, you get an additional vote. It just helps secure your side in favor, especially if you're playing against 1 player or 2 players. Nothing too big. Your chances just increase. But like I said, this is a card that I would never see in a deck. I don't think anybody's ever going to play this, but I don't know. Maybe if somebody builds a voting based deck where everything's based off of the choices of your opponents and yourself. But like I said, I just don't ever see it being played, to be honest. But pretty cool card though. I mean, it's a creature. It's a 1/4. If anything, a defender. Now this one I found interesting. It can't be countered, so it's like, Banefire in that aspect where you play the spell, it can't be countered. So for 1 and 2 red, Volcanic Fallout can't be countered, and it deals 2 damage to each creature and each player. So a little miniature board wipe on some tokens or something if need be, and then the 2 damage to each player. You need that little, extra damage boost. I could see this being in like a Niv Mizzet commander deck where you're not playing creature heavy, you're playing burn heavy. You want, to punish your opponents for playing creatures at the same time dealing damage to their face. I feel like it's a pretty solid card for like a Niv Mizzet deck. Spontaneous Combustion. As an additional cost to cast Spontaneous Combustion, sacrifice a creature. Spontaneous Combustion deals 3 damage to each creature. So, as an instant speed stuff here, somebody targets one of your creatures, well, it's the only creature you've got on the board. Okay, I'm going to play Spontaneous Combustion, sacrifice the creature instead, and it deals 3 damage to each of your creatures as well. So, I think it's a pretty cool card for 3 mana. Breakthrough. Draw 4 cards, then choose X cards in your hand and discard the rest. Wow. I'd never seen this card before. I really like it. I actually pulled the foil version of it earlier. I think I'm going to put this in a deck of my own, actually. So if I've got 4 cards in hand, so I play this card, I draw 4 cards, and I pay X as 4. I'm going to choose 4 cards in my hand. I get to keep them. So basically, I'm paying 5 mana for 4 cards, and I feel like that is really good draw support right there. So I'm definitely liking this card here. Flamerite, 2 mana, Boros. I mean, it's not overpowered. It's a 1/1 creature, but you can pay 1 and tap it to put a 1/1 colorless construct artifact creature token with Defender on the battlefield. just to add a little extra blockage on the field. Or you can tap this creature, or sacrifice it, or sacrifice a creature with defending, so not this creature. So you can make your little construct with defender, tap this and sacrifice a creature with defender, and it deals 1 damage to target creature or player. Doesn't sound like a lot, but you put enough creatures with defender on the field and you need to ping somebody for 1 or ping a creature for 1, just that little extra damage. But for a 2-drop 1/1 creature with a couple tap abilities, it's not bad. So I put that in the hardly ever going to be played range, but still something that caught my interest. Lead the Stampede. I've seen this in a lot of green decks. Look at the top 5 cards of your library. You may reveal any number of creature cards from among them and put the revealed cards into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. So basically just putting creatures in your hand. And if you don't need the mana or the instants and sorceries, enchantments, or things like that, just put them on the bottom of your deck. You need creatures. I feel like it's a pretty good card. Pretty solid. Extract from Darkness. Each player puts the top 2 cards of his or her library into his or her graveyard. Then put a creature card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. Wow. So, if somebody already has creatures in their graveyard and you want one of those creatures, play this card. Because you're going to put that creature onto the battlefield under your control, regardless of what they put in their deck from milling themselves. I feel like this is a pretty good card that I've never seen before. More like a mid to late game type deal to secure a win or something, but still pretty good in Dimir. Reito Lantern, R-E-I-T-O, Reito. Anyway, for 2 mana, artifact. Then you can pay 3. Put a target card from a graveyard on the bottom of its owner's library. I feel like this is kind of one of those, it's one of those cards that is kind of situational, like in a Marin deck or something. That they're going to, at their end step, they're going to put this creature with converted mana cost equal to or less than the amount of experience counters on their side of the field. Well, I'm going to go ahead and put a target card from your graveyard on the bottom of your library, so you're denied that creature now at instant speed. I feel like that is pretty situational. So if you know somebody plays Marin in your play group and you want to stop them from pulling this creature out or something, put out a Reito Lantern. I mean, for 2 mana, if anything, you can stop them from pulling anything back in any deck. Like, it just seems really good in that aspect. Barodin's Core. So this is a land. It's nothing too special, but you can add 1 to your mana pool, or you can tap it and put a charge counter on it. Later on, you can tap it and remove a charge counter from it, and add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. So if you don't really need the extra, 1 colorless mana, just tap it and put a charge counter on it. Just do that until you actually need some mana, and then remove a charge counter and add 1 mana of any color. So I think it's a pretty decent land card. Quicksand, add 1 to your mana pool, or you can tap it and sacrifice it. Target attacking creature without flying gets -2, or -1, -2 until the end of turn. So if you need a little problem child out of your way, you can tap for 1 mana until it's time to say, okay, well, I want to kill off your 2/2 or something like that. Just something to put in your deck if you kind of got something budget going. Vow of Duty. It's an enchant creature. Enchant creature gets +2/+2 and has vigilance and can't attack you or a planeswalker you control. I really like this, and I'm not really biased against putting it on an opponent, obviously. So it just makes sense if they got a pretty good attacker, where say like Thief of Sanity, and it hits you, you're going to lose cards and they're going to steal cards. Well, this prevents them from attacking you while also buffing them up, so it guarantees that they stay on the board a little longer. Usually guarantees. If they stay on the board a little longer, they can attack a little harder and still get, your opponent's stuff. I really like this. And then there's also like, some other creatures that when it attacks you, when it does combat damage to you, you do this or this or this, like Annihilator, anything with Annihilator, like Ulamog. Alright, it's already overpowered. But this just says, alright, your Ulamog can't attack me. Go ahead and swing at my opponent and destroy, permanents. Spectral Searchlight. Tap it, choose a player. That player adds 1 mana of any color. This is one of those cards where I say, okay, I can use it for myself, or play a little politics. I'll give you a mana if you don't attack me next turn, or something like that. Like they just need that 1 extra mana to cast something. Okay, well, as long as you don't target me, I'll give you that mana, and you can target whoever else you want. A little politics involved in this card, and I really like it. Intangible Virtue. Creature tokens you control get +1/+1 and have vigilance for 2 mana. I really like that, so long as you're playing a token based deck, like say Markov or, anything like green and white that generates tokens. I really like it in that aspect. So it's probably something I would play in a green-white deck, which I have. And I'm probably going to put it in there. Swords to Plowshares. It's a well-known 1-drop exile target creature. Its controller gains life equal to its power. I'm sure everybody who's watching this knows exactly what Swords is, so no secret there. It's been reprinted a lot. This is actually a reprint, so no secret to its power. Just one of those cards that I wanted to showcase that's actually in Conspiracy, and I didn't realize that. Same with Pelakka Wurm. It's not something that you guys have never seen before. It's been reprinted quite a bit, but I never knew it was in Conspiracy, so here it is. Victimize. I think this is, one print out of many, but Victimize is choose 2 target creature cards in your graveyard, sacrifice a creature. If you do, return the chosen cards to the battlefield tapped. So, Meren comes to mind, obviously. Sacrifice a creature, get 2 creatures back onto the battlefield tapped. And then you might be able to play a spell to untap permanents or non-land permanents or creatures or something, so then you've got them available to attack. I really like this card, and I've heard people talk about it before, but I'm just now starting to see how good this card is for an uncommon. It's really good. Gamekeeper. So for 3 and a green, it's an elf. So in your elf tribal deck, when Gamekeeper dies, you may exile it. If you do, reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a creature card. Put that card onto the battlefield and put all other cards revealed this way into your graveyard. This would even go well with Meren. So when this creature dies, reveal cards until you reveal a creature card. Put that creature card onto the battlefield, and then put all those other cards back into the graveyard. And then if Meren's out and you've got experience counters, you can take a creature card that you put into the graveyard this way back onto the battlefield anyway. It's just a really good card in a deck like that. Graveyard shenanigans in any way. Predator's Howl. Put a 2/2 green wolf token creature on the battlefield. Ooh. Or, if a creature died this turn, put 3 2/2 green wolf token creatures onto the battlefield instead. So, like I said, Marin comes to mind. Sacrifice a creature, do something, um, and then play this. Put 3 tokens onto the battlefield. Just some extra bodies on the battlefield. Seems like a win-win. Another Marin specialty, Morbid. At the beginning of each end step, if a creature died this turn, you may draw a card. Little extra draw support. Vampire Hexmage for 2 black. It's got first strike. It's a 2/1. Sacrifice it. Remove all counters from a target permanent. Another Marin specialty in my book. Sacrifice this to remove all counters from a Planeswalker. Let's kill off a Planeswalker right away. Sounds pretty good to me. Tragic Slip for 1 mana. This card right here just blew my mind. Target creature gets -1/-1 until the end of turn. Unless a creature died this turn, then that creature gets -13/13 until the end of turn. That's insane. For 1 black, I never knew this card existed. That is phenomenal. Pulled 4 of those earlier. Squirrel Nest. I'm sure we all know the infinite combo with Squirrel Nest. Getting as many squirrels as you want. What was it, like Earthcraft? Pair it with this. Tap a target creature. And then you untap a target land. So then you tap the enchanted land, put a squirrel on the battlefield, tap a target creature to untap a target land. So basically, you're getting infinite squirrels onto the battlefield. And I pulled these squirrel tokens just for this. Alright. Anyway, Squirrel Nest. Fact or Fiction. Reveal the top 5 cards in your library. An opponent separates those into 2 piles. Put 1 pile into your hand and the other in your graveyard. I mean, it's okay. I probably wouldn't play this card, but I figured some of you might. I don't know. It might be fact or fiction in that case. Favorable Winds. It's a reprint from Ixalan. In Ixalan, I believe. Creatures you control with flying get +1/+1. Mortify. I'm sure we've all seen Mortify. This is in, I believe this was in the Ravnica Allegiance. Treasonous Ogre. It's got Dethrone. Dethrone means whenever this creature attacks the player with the most life or tied for the most life, put a +1/+1 counter on it. Then you can pay 3 life to add a mountain or red mana to your mana pool. So if you're ahead on life, you don't really care about your life total, but you need to get this spell cast and you need red mana, I'd say that's pretty decent. Unquestioned Authority. Enchant creature. When Unquestioned Authority enters the battlefield, draw a card. Enchanted creature has protection from creatures. That's pretty good. Smallpox. Now we're getting into some cards that, you know, aren't really, like, I don't see a lot of people playing it, but it's still there. It's playable. Each player loses a life, discards a card, sacrifices a creature, then sacrifices a land. And the reason I don't see that this being played because each player, so that means also includes yourself. So you lose a life, you discard a card, you sacrifice a creature, and you sacrifice a land. I mean, everybody does it, but I feel like you'd only play this if you were so far ahead that you don't really care if you're sacrificing, say, a creature, like a token, or a small creature that doesn't matter. But when you get into, like, Marin, like, you're sacrificing a creature, you get an experience counter. You can bring a creature back at the end of your, you know, and at the beginning of your end step. It's perfect in a deck like that. Wakestone Gargoyle. I was admiring the artwork on this thing. The gargoyles look pretty sweet. So anyway, it's got Defender. It's a flyer. Then you can pay 1 in a white. Creatures you control with Defender can attack this turn as though they didn't have Defender. It's in one of those decks. It's like what is it? That Dragon Arcades, I believe, that has they can make creatures with Defender attack, and their power is equal to their toughness, I believe. I don't know. I don't remember all of it, but it's specific to decks like that where Defender decks. Ruined Servitor. When it dies, each player draws a card. Not a lot of people play this. I wouldn't say that this is played very much, but extra draw support. Keep it on the battlefield. I don't know. Just one of those cards I see quite often. Brainstorm. I think everybody knows what Brainstorm does. You draw 3 cards, and you put 2 cards from your hand on top of your library in any order. For 1 blue. So good draw support in that you get 3 cards, but if it's all junk and you have to put something back on top of your deck, you know you're going to draw into junk. It just kind of stalls you. I don't know. I played Brainstorm, but I feel like I'm going to stop playing Brainstorm. I did pull the foil though. I thought that was pretty cool. Copperhorn Scout. When Copperhorn Scout attacks, untap each other creature you control. I like that, especially since it's an elf, and a lot of elves mana ramp. So if you need mana, well, I'm going to attack with my little 1/1 1-drop, and I'm going to untap all my mana producing elves and retap them for more mana. That's what I would use it for, so pretty cool. Traveler's Cloak. Enchant creature. As Traveler's Cloak enters the battlefield, choose a land type. When Traveler's Cloak enters the battlefield, draw a card. Enchanted creature has Land Walk of the chosen type. Land Walk makes the creature unblockable if your opponent has a land of that type. So like Island Walk, Swamp Walk, Forest Walk, Mountain Walk. It's a pretty cool card in my book. I mean, it's a common, a 2 and a blue to play, and it guarantees that your creature isn't going to be blocked if your opponent controls a land of the Land Walk type. I don't see why people don't play this more, to be honest. Stronghold Discipline. Each player loses 1 life for each creature he or she controls. Go ahead, build your board. I don't care. You're going to get punished for it. That's what this card is saying. I think I can see this in a few decks. Pulled quite a bit of those. Nature's Claim. For 1 green. Destroy a target artifact or enchantment. Its controller gains 4 life. I feel like if you're going to destroy an artifact or enchantment, 4 life isn't a whole lot to sacrifice. Your opponent might not need the life, like it's kind of irrelevant, but they need that artifact or enchantment. They do, or you just need them to not have it. Like say a Dictate of Erebos or something. Like you don't want to sacrifice creatures when one of their creatures dies, so I'm just going to get rid of it. Go ahead, take the 4 life. I don't care. That's what this card does, and I just don't see why I haven't seen this card before. Tyrant's Choice. Will of the Council. It's another voting card. So starting with you, each player votes for death or torture. If death gets more votes, each opponent sacrifices a creature. If torture gets more votes, or the vote is tied, each opponent loses 4 life. So they're either going to sacrifice a creature or they're going to take 4 life. I think that's pretty cool. Steve! So we've got Sakura Tribe Elder. Sacrifice it. Search your library for a basic land card. Put that card onto the battlefield tapped. Then shuffle your library. Perfect with Marin. Just perfect. Sacrifice him. Get a land. Put it on the battlefield. Bring him back at your end step. No brainer. Dream Fracture. It's at instant speed. It's a 1 and 2 blue. Counter target spell. Its controller draws a card. Then you get to draw a card. Now I put this in here because I like the artwork. I think it's pretty badass. And secondly, if you need cards and you have a dead hand, you can cast something, but it doesn't make sense to cast. Counter your own spell. Draw 2 cards. I think that's a pretty good example of why Dream Fracture would work. I don't see it being played very often because there's better counter spells out there, but if you need cards in hand, this is your card. Unhallowed Pact. Alright, it's an enchant creature. When it dies, when the enchanted creature dies, return that card to the battlefield under your control. So it's like a regeneration. Here we got Necromantic Thirst, enchanted creature. When enchanted creature deals combat damage to a player, you may return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. That's pretty good. You know, if you need your creatures back, they keep getting destroyed, they keep getting board wiped. I'm just going to swing in with this unblockable creature. You know, I'm going to make my creature unblockable. Give it island walk, you know, whatever. I don't know. And then I'm just going to get my creatures back from the graveyard. Respite. Prevent all combat damage that would be dealt this turn. You gain 1 life for each attacking creature. I just think it's a better fog. You gain life for each attacking creature. Like, you might gain 5 life, you might gain 10 life. It just depends, but just a better fog. Siphon Soul. This isn't too great of a card, but it's just one of those honorable mentions because it's such a cool looking card with Phage on there. It deals 2 damage to each other player, and you gain life equal to damage dealt this way. I mean, that's not too much life gained and not too much life lost, but it's just one of those cards that's been printed a few times and, you know, cool to look at. Altar's Reap. As an additional cost to cast Altar's Reap, sacrifice a creature and draw 2 cards. So, 2 mana, a creature, draw 2 cards. Typhoid Rats. For 1 black, it's got Death Touch and it's a 1/1. It's a pretty cool blocker for a 1 black. Aether Tradewinds. Return target permanent you control and a target permanent you don't control to their owner's hands. So when I saw this card, I thought, okay, what can I do with this? Well, there's a lot of enter the battlefield triggers that kind of just go away, and the card is useless after that. Like Ravenous Chupacabra. I'm going to pull a permanent card like Ravenous Chupacabra up into my hand, and then they have to pull a permanent from their hand, and I'm going to play Ravenous Chupacabra again and destroy another creature. That's just what comes to mind as far as Aether Tradewinds. I wanted to showcase the commons, uncommons, but I will also show what I pulled earlier as far as rares and mythics. At least the good ones. The other ones are kind of irrelevant. But Plea for Power is another Will of Council card. Edric, Spymaster of Trest. Death Render. Coercive Portal. Pernicious Deed. Stifle. It's a 1 blue counterspell, or not counterspell, but counter target activated or triggered ability. Scourge of the Throne. Brago, King Eternal. I got 2 of those. Silent Arbiter. No more than 1 creature can attack each combat. No more than 1 creature can block each combat. That's nuts. Altar of Dementia. Reflecting Pool. I've pulled 2 explorations. Pretty awesome. And a Vidalcan Orrery. So I got the 2 most expensive cards in this set. And I got 2 of 1 of them. Just an awesome box. I loved it. Anyway, my new favorite set so far, Conspiracy. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Let me know what you think about the video quality, the presentation, things like that. I could use the feedback. This is my first video of its kind, so I could always use the feedback. Let me know.